Hello, listen, I am so glad that you've joined us for another Sunday Conversations. I am excited to have two of my good friends, Pastor David Franklin and Cynthia Franklin, joining us on the broadcast today. Listen, if you're joining us, why don't you just type in the comment box where you're from so we know where you're from? And please, if you want to engage with David and Cynthia and ask them questions, they're going to be open and honest. Ask them things, please, that make them even uncomfortable. Just put them in the comment box. But I'm going to just bring them on really quick. And David and Cynthia, I want to thank you all for joining me on Sunday Conversations. I'm going to talk about you all first, okay? Cynthia is a licensed clinical social worker. She is the CEO and psychotherapist at The Couch LLC, an awesome clinician and an even better person. Pastor David Franklin is the lead pastor of Miracle City. He is an innovator. This man is a genius. He's not only a marketing genius, he's a great and fantastic pastor, a good friend of mine. We used to play golf together. He's abandoned me now. But I want to just welcome David and Cynthia Franklin to the broadcast. Why don't you all just greet the people, let them know something else about yourselves, give them a little introduction, then we'll break to commercial.
Hi, welcome. Well, first of all, we just want to thank you, David, for creating this platform that is needed just to celebrate love and to learn and to grow together. And we are just elated to be a part of something that's so wonderful and so needed.
Yeah, he's waking us up early on a Sunday morning. But other than that, we are excited to be participating in everything he's doing. Dr. David Defoe is really doing great stuff on every level. So excited for you, bro, and excited to be part of these Sunday Conversations.
Well, listen, I want to thank you all definitely for coming on, and we're going to get right into it. And if you're joining us, by all means, just drop in the comment box where you're from. And then also share this with someone else. With all the things that are going on, you know, Dave and Cynthia, I really thought about canceling this, but I think that there are a lot of people who are at home who maybe want to break from some of the bad news that we've been experiencing. And so for you all to come on still this morning, even though it is early, but it's 10 o'clock, Dave. Even though it is early, I want to thank you all for coming on and sharing this with the people.
It's our pleasure.
The Relationship Ministries Department of the Allegheny East Conference is a family of ministries that seeks to engage, enrich, and empower families, men, singles, couples, and parents to have healthy and whole relationships. To access the many resources we have available to you, your church, or your family, visit us on the web at www.visitaec.org/relationshipmin.
Her voice is really cute, isn't it?
It really is.
All right, so we're going to get right into it because the hour is going to go by real quick. So can you all tell us just a little bit about yourselves that may not have been in the introduction, and then sort of tell us about how you all first met or how your love story sort of got started?
I'll let you start, babe.
Sure. So I'm originally from Kenya. I don't know if a lot of people generally know that. I think, and our culture definitely colors the way we do relationship, both familial culture and the country that you're from. And so, that's something about me that I don't know a lot of people know that about me.
Yeah, so originally from Cali, born and raised, and youngest of three boys, and grew up just always wanting to go into business. Never intended to be a pastor, but the Lord had other plans for me, and here we are, and I'm enjoying the journey. But as we think about how we first met, it's actually a crazy story. It's a crazy story that even an hour will not give us time to do justice to.
But give us the real story. We want the real story, man.
Well, we got it for you, David.
Yeah. So, I was a student at Oakwood University. You were at
AUC, Atlantic Union College.
Atlantic Union College up in Massachusetts. And we were, had no knowledge of each other. Cynthia came to Oakwood for a an event that we were having, a conference. It was called
AIA.
AIA, right?
Yeah.
It was the what was that?
Adventist Intercollegial Association.
Right. So it was like all the student governments were coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw her walking down the street, and I said to myself, this is going to be my wife. In fact, I felt impressed that was going to be my wife. She had a different first impression of me, which is not, I still don't appreciate it. After all these years, I still don't appreciate her first impression of me. Anyway, go ahead.
I said to my friend, there goes one of those Oakwood guys that think they're all handsome and all that.
Oh, that's even a revised version. Okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
And you thought he was handsome. That's all I heard.
I did.
Thank
did.
you,
It
Thank you.
it was a passive, like, I guess he's all right.
Yeah, I had dreadlocks at the time. She didn't like the dreads. She was, she was like, she was dismissing me before I even had a chance. But here's a crazy story is that Cynthia went to AUC. She was admitted by a wonderful mentor of ours who has now passed on, by the name of Dean Alma Fogo York. And so Dean York had retired and came back down to Oakwood, and we were looking to do some mission work at the time. And Cynthia and, Dean York started to help us facilitate to do some mission work with the mission organization we were working with. And the very long story short is that Dean York led a fact-finding mission to Zambia, where her parents lived at the time. Mm-hmm. They were able to have some conversations with her parents, and that began to
unfold. So then my mom sent me to kind of check out this organization, and the timing, God's timing is perfect, right? So it just happened that I was having a meeting. So my mom says to me, hey, go check out this organization and make sure that it's legitimate, So I went, and the first day is when we had that encounter.
Yes.
What was the science building?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I was walking out of the science building after meeting with one of the leaders, and and then it happened. And the funny story is that I was always that girl who always was like, you guys need to go get your education and take it back home. Don't stay in America and get comfortable. And here I am.
Yes.
It's okay.
God had other plans.
But that's awesome. That's awesome. And I want to thank you all for sort of sharing that, right? Anything else you wanted to share about how you all, like, you never taught us you never talked to us about how the dating started. So
the dating, very good. So we both graduated different schools. We graduated, we did a mission trip that summer. And there's a whole backstory to that we're not even getting into, just because we don't have time. Not that we're not willing to tell it. Mm-hmm. But we did a mission trip that summer. We were both on the mission trip, giving each other googly eyes, not dating at all. And then we worked for that mission organization for a year after that mission trip. So for the around October is when we kind of started dating. So you say we graduated in May. By that October, we were kind of dating. She ended up going back home. And when she went back home to Zambia, we broke up. And she'll tell the story that she didn't know that we broke up. But I...
Minor detail.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that happen as you are transitioning and matriculating, and you're making major life decisions as you're finishing college, and it gets a little hairy, as we all know. So David was switching careers, really, because he was in marketing, and so now he was interested in ministry. And so, when your trajectory for your career is going one way, relationship issues tend to arise, So yeah, so I was not informed that we were that he was thinking to go a different direction or to not be in the relationship, and so I think it was in England we had a conversation.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so much that I was interested in going in a different direction. It just was like the relationship was dissolved. It just had dissolved, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so, she was now in Zambia at the time, and I was still in Huntsville, Alabama. And, it was like, all right, I guess things are moving on.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And so here's the thing. Usually, that was the easy out for me because that meant I could go back home. But to be honest with you, I really, and I don't mean to sound like one of these people that are like, God spoke to me and it was, but I really don't. That's not my MO. But I really, and this is why, like, I'm so grateful that I was in a really good place with the Lord in this season of my life, because that's a thing, you know what I mean? And I really did feel impressed, and that David was supposed to be the person that I marry, and it was an unapologetic, it was very clear that this is the person, and I'm like, but then look at this, like, what's this, Jesus? What's happening? And so it allowed for me to leave a glimmer of, hope that the Lord was going to work it out. But still yet, set boundaries and, communicate that this is, this is not how it's going to flow.
Oh yeah, don't get it twisted. This though, we ended up on another trip together. That's what she was talking about in England, and she gave me the riot act, right? She was like, I don't know who you think you are that you can, just decide that you have moved on, and don't let this smooth, calm and collected demeanor fool you. Okay, she laid it out. She laid me out, and in many ways, I was actually appreciative for it, because it actually let me know she was still interested, right? So it opened up the door for us to begin to kind of re-explore whether or not this is going to be something.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Listen, that is awesome, right? And it of course takes a very strong, powerful woman to tame you, Dave. So, real quick, right? Talk to us about some of the biggest blessings that you've seen in your marriage, or tell us about a time in your marriage where you felt like you wouldn't have made it. See, because what we want to do is we want to help people who are struggling in their marriage, some people who are dating, some people, we want to help the full spectrum. And so I think that you all will have a lot of good things to share to help people struggling in all aspects of their relationship. So talk about some of the biggest blessings, and then a time in your marriage that may have been challenging where you thought you might not have been able to make it.
I think having kids, in terms of challenges, I mean, it definitely takes a toll. And not only just having children, but having children and being away from family and friends, being around a support system, that really pulled us, and it's just about, and one of the things that I've been big on with this whole coronavirus thing is learning how to be flexible and not letting that elasticity snap, and sometimes it gets real stretched, I would say that was very challenging. And also being that not only are you having children, but the trajectory of your careers the demands are also pulling at you as well. And so, navigating around that and sort of landing on your feet it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm even right now, right? I mean, I'm working on a PhD program and, trying to complete that degree. I mean, I'm confident that, were it not for the support of Cynthia and, just the way that we've been able to share life, that I wouldn't be able to, get this degree done, right? It's really going to be a family degree. We're going to both call ourselves doctors when it's all said and done, right? Because it really is, the support that she provides that allows, need to be able to do that. So I think that, that's a blessing and all mixed in there, as well as, wouldn't be able to make it, were it not for her. So I think that, I think the kids have been challenging, but I think, again, these moments of being able to kind of figure out how we can, share the load and navigate through some of the more challenging moments has been what has been one of the greatest blessings. So.
Yeah. And so how do you all get through all of these things? Like, give people practical tips on how you sort of manage things like conflict or work-life balances. Like, and are there some more examples that you all are willing to share? Because people are struggling, with children. Some people are struggling with work, with school, all that kind of stuff. How do you all make it through those things, and give people some like practical tips that you think have worked for you all?
Well, one thing that we've really been blessed with is having a good core group of friends that have really stepped into, they have carte blanche, they can be honest, like, hey, like, Cynthia, you were wrong for that, or like, I noticed this, like, like doing life together, and trusting each other's judgment. That's really, really been helpful. So I lost my train of thought.
Yeah. Well, being able to have, I do believe being able to have people who hold you accountable is critical. Right. And we have a crew that we roll with that, we are our true selves without question. So I think that's important. I think there is also, though, this importance of understanding that life changes based off of the various seasons that you go through. So at one time we were a dating couple, then we were an engaged couple, then we were a married couple, then we were a married couple who both were, working, so two career individuals. Then we were two career individuals with kids. Then we are two career individuals with kids and pursuing, for Cynthia, starting her own business, for me, working on another degree. So, each of those stages of life cause for a level of flexibility and recalibration. And so one of the things that has been important for us is not to assume that the way we have functioned in the previous season will be effective in the next season. So it requires that communication to be able to sit down and say, you know what, okay, things have adjusted now. How are we going to reorder our schedule, right? How are we going to change roles even, right? Role responsibilities, right? So, okay, now maybe David, you got to, well, this one has never really been mine, but now you got to stay at home and cook the food, right? You know what I mean? The cooking, I've stayed at home with the kids, but the cooking ain't really never been my responsibility. But at times, when I'll give you a very practical one. So when we were, we had Malachi, that's our oldest son, had our first son. It was time, her FMLA and all of that was done, and so it was time for her to go back to work. And we had gotten to the point where we were like, you know what, the safety and the health and the development of our kids is paramount. That's going to be our priority. But so we had already decided she wasn't going back full time, but she's still going to be going back. So 3 days out of the week, daddy's at home for most of the day. During that time, she was still nursing our oldest son. Mm-hmm. So she would come home during lunchtime, nurse him, then go back to work. And then in the evenings would try to pump enough so that I had the milk while she wasn't there. Right. So all I'm saying is that, we had to be flexible enough to adjust to those roles and do what the moment required in order for our family to be safe, healthy, and to continue to thrive.
And the thing that I also, I guess in retrospect learned too, is that sometimes when you're going through it, it feels like, oh my goodness, this is my life. it's never going to end, but it does. It's a season, right? And I think like with Micah, it was a little bit easier because you're conscious that, oh, it's just a season. It's not like I'm not ever going to get enough sleep and be nursing for the rest of my life. Because when you're in it, that's what it feels like, because you're sleep deprived. And, and this is quite frankly an issue that a lot of working moms have too, and I think Michelle Obama said it very well. It's like you go back part-time, but you still have full-time responsibilities, and so, we came to a point where we were like, this is not working, because it was just too stressful. So I decided to leave to be a full-time stay-at-home mom, Yeah. And we were like, let's give it 5 years. We'll do the kid thing. And we had Micah. And then that's when David was very supportive in me starting the private practice slowly, So I started, seeing clients 1 day a week, and then started 2 days a week. And, Micah was ready to go into interact with other children, and he started daycare, and so it's about navigating those transitions in a healthy way. And for us, some of those transitions, we needed a mediator, we needed a therapist to like, hey, like, this is how, like, even though I'm a therapist and even though David is a pastor and we know cognitively all about like how to do relationship, we needed a ref to be like, yeah, no, Cynthia, you're wrong, or, hey, David, maybe you need to fall back on that, So there is no shame in getting help when you need it. And sometimes it takes an outside, a neutral person, because sometimes we talk to family and then, mom catches feelings with your spouse and they're like, they'll never forgive them, And so I think it's important to protect your spouse in that way, to kind of, to get the help in a way that will sustain the relationship in the long term.
Yeah. Do me a favor, right? Because you all have this experience, and Cynthia, you do therapy. Talk to somebody who thinks that maybe just going to their friends or bringing their issues in their relationships to parents or relatives, that's all that they need to do, or sitting down with just their pastor to talk about it. Like, talk a little bit about the benefits of people sitting down with professionals to sort of work through their relationship issues, and how it's important to do it before you get to crisis.
Right. Yeah, it's important to get the tools, right, prior to, because it's all about fighting fair, right? Because I mean, you're gonna have disagreements because we're human, and we have our differences, and so it's about getting the tools from someone who really knows, like all the different tools that are available for different personalities, because there's different modalities, and so your mom may not know, though. Sometimes parents have good wisdom. Sometimes friends have good wisdom, but sometimes you need to actually talk through, actual situations with someone who can really be a ref. It's kind of like asking your pastor to ref a boxing match. I'm sorry, like, they don't know all the rules. No, they don't. Okay. That is such a pet peeve for me. That's my soapbox. Yeah, they don't. I mean, and I mean,
about the fight. Never mind.
Yeah, no, I respect their wisdom and the fact that the Lord guides them. But there comes a time when even David's like, hey, like, I need a referral, because this situation is outside of my scope, and I respect that, because it's a good leader knows their weaknesses, and they refer you get some expertise that have gone to school for umpteen years to and licensed to do that which they have been called to do, because it's a ministry. Like, that's a different ministry, Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the only thing I would add, I think what you said is right on. We just did this interview with Dr. Rita Walker, and I think one of the things she said is sometimes, particularly as Christians and believers, that when we try to spiritualize things about saying, oh, God will supply all my needs, or all I need to do is pray, is really it's our way of distracting from the fact that we are just fearful of talking to a stranger, right? And then another thing that I think came out in that interview with her was that what's working, right? So if prayer is working and you're healthy and the relationship, and if that's great and fine, but if you're still, if you're praying and you're still having some challenges, right? You're talking to your friends and you're still having some challenges, right? Then it may suggest that you need to try a different tool, a different technique in order to address the strife or the difficulty that is in your relationship. And for me, it's just like, nothing should be off the table. Like, why are we pigeonholing ourselves, or predetermining that we will not use certain tools, right? That we will not access certain techniques. And so, I think, it's like, hey, if you go and talk to Big Mama, and after talking to Big Mama, you come home and y'all still fighting like cats and dogs, you know what I'm saying? Or all you still want to do is escape and not actually deal with the situation. Then I think you got to try something different, and definitely therapy with a trained professional is a good way to go.
And one of those biggest challenges that, I see is that once I go talk to my family about it, the family only gets one side of the story.
Correct.
And then that oftentimes color interaction between the couples themselves.
Absolutely.
That's one of the reasons we don't really want to do it too. Yeah. Gotcha.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's just hit it before we run out of time, right? How do you all keep things spicy in your marriage? How do you all keep the intimacy alive with the children, with a heavy work schedule, all those kind of things? Help people who don't find the time to connect.
Yeah. So first of all, let me say this will not be as interesting as your last guest.
Wait till you see my follow-up question.
Yeah. So look, I think that, and this is true, right? Like, what I'm going to say is true, that our emotional intimacy is directly connected to our physical intimacy. So when our emotional intimacy is trending in the right direction, then the physical intimacy is off the charts. But when the emotional intimacy is not trending in the right direction, then things are not as regular or not as enjoyable. And so that's just the reality, right? It's if there is that connection, then there's openness to like, hey, let's do this, or let's try that, or whatever. But if it's not, then there's the physical intimacy just doesn't happen.
And really being, attentive to love language too, because that is all foreplay, really,
right.
When it boils down to it. And so, not speaking your partner's love language and or speaking your personal love language to the other person, and being like, well, why don't you, it doesn't work. And so being intentional about learning the other person and learning what they like and what, makes them tick. So.
Yeah. I think the only other thing that I would say to that is, look, like, you're in this relationship, right? You got you're in the relationship, especially for somebody who may be married, or, I'm going to talk to those who are married, you talking about keeping things spicy. I'm going to talk to those who are married, right? Yeah. So, but
such a pastor.
What you're muted, Defoe. You're muted.
Unmarried people need intimacy. They may not be able to have sex, but they need intimacy.
Yes, of course. I agree. I agree with that. I agree. You said to keep things spicy, though. So yeah. Yes. So I was just going to say that I think there is it's important to yes, know your spouse, understand their love language, and then remember that you are in the relationship. So if you're here, it's important for you to do whatever is necessary to ensure that relationship is healthy and whole. And I think that again, predetermining what you will, what you won't, is often a recipe for relational or I would say for the intimacy to begin to wane.
Yeah. So can you all talk a little bit more about developing the emotional intimacy? Because I think that's where a lot of people fall short. Like, so tell us what that tangibly looks like, and then give people advice. Like, so what if me and my spouse, we can't even get along? We can't even talk to each other. How is emotional intimacy going to be developed? So sort of talk to us a little bit more about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I know I'm a therapist, and so I'm always going to sort of go back to that. But sometimes it's personal issues that each individual might be experiencing, whether if there's trauma or they've come from an abusive relationship, whatever. A lot of those things color, or you didn't see your parents interacting in the best of ways in terms of intimacy and that kind of thing. You didn't have an example and that kind of thing. All of that is key. And sometimes, the only way to discover that is by exploring exploring it in therapy and sort of finding yourself. Because if each individual is not healthy and like showing up in an authentic, organic way, it's going to affect the relationship.
Mm-hmm. I want to say to somebody out there who, again, you're talking about this emotional intimacy. Folks don't want to talk to each other. You don't have the luxury to stay on whatever island of emotional anger, frustration that you're on. You need the person who's next to you. And I think it's important to, it's like we can harbor these feelings. We can be upset. We can be angry. And again, I'm not even talking about especially a physically abusive relationship, right? I'm talking about a couple who just may be at odds, or hasn't found their communication rhythm. All right, but you don't have the luxury to kind of stay in your silo, right? You got to be able to come out of that and say, okay, we're going to try some things. And I want to say, I think therapy is important, but I want to especially as I sit here and talk with two therapists, say that therapy is one tool, right? It is. And we ought to, I want to empower people that like you can test and do some trial and error work within the context of your relationship. In other words, showing up and being present. Like, my spouse said this, why am I angry about that? Right? Or even, if I'm in a dating relationship, my boyfriend or my girlfriend said this, why did that frustrate me? Okay, that frustrated me because. And when you ask that question, or when you finish that statement, because, well, that's the way my dad used to handle me, or that's the way my mom used to handle me, or that triggers some trauma from when I was on the playground in school and kids used to make fun of me, right? And so it's like, it's being able to do that kind of self-talk, that internal work to evaluate why your emotions are the way that they are and why you're responding the way that you're responding, that evaluation can then help you begin to determine, okay, how can I show up differently that will be useful in my relationship?
Yeah.
That is awesome. Listen, okay, so we have people out there that are dating, they're contemplating marriage. What advice would you give someone who's contemplating marriage or who's at the very start of their journey, whether they're happy or unhappy?
Yeah.
What would you share with people?
Well, I think at the beginning of our conversation, I talked about my culture. I think culture is very important to understand. And so, get to know the family. I think sometimes, I think in this day and age, we tend to be more isolated because of just the way things are unfolding. But it's important to understand the other person's family, because they're going to be your family, and not only are they going to be your family, but this person was marinated in that family. And so it's the flavors of aunt such and such, are going to come flowing through when you are in a certain situation, and dad is going to come through in a certain situation. And so I think it's really important to be very, very attentive. And I know we don't have a lot of time, but in my culture, David and I didn't really understand dowry, and we were both very opposed to it because, we didn't, it's kind of one of those things you don't know till you know, like until it's time for you to go through it. But it's very beneficial because what it does is it allows for the two families to really come and negotiate and get to really know each other and have conflict resolution and support this couple. And ultimately, which we didn't know, the monetary part of it is always goes back to the couple anyway, right? But it really allows for the time for the families to really work through all the kinks. And sometimes couples, they don't make it, and that's great, because it means that you probably weren't supposed to be together, and so I think we can find ways to take some of those qualities and integrate it in our process of courting and getting to know each other, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I would say in addition to knowing the family, and I would agree, we probably could do a whole nother episode about the dowry process and what happens when an American marries an African. We probably need to do that at some point anyway. But I think this idea about knowing the family is critical. And it's not about, it's not about, is this a nice family or a bad family? It's, okay, what are the elements? What are the aspects in this family? What's the culture? I really love that. What's the flavor of the family, right? What's the flavor of the family, and how, and is that a flavor that I connect with, right? Because that will show up in your in your relationship. And I always say that, everybody's a little bit crazy. You just, when you're getting married, you got to determine whether or not you want to marry the crazy who's next to you, right? Do you want to sleep next to that crazy every night? And that's what premarital coaching, pre-engagement coaching or counseling is really all about. It's about determining, do I have enough information to go into marriage with eyes wide open? I think that that the way that we have been socialized, movies that we watch, the way that we've seen relationships happen within our own family, nucleus, has colored what true love is and what it looks like, and the color that is placed on it is causing us to understand or view our relationships, I think, in a distorted way. And so for me, I just think that it's really important that you take the time to know the individual, and it's okay to say, that they may be a nice person. Like, I think we get into this, he's a good man. Look, he may be a good man, but he may not be the good man for you. And so I think it's important for you to do the deep dive, to be able to evaluate the person, their personality, their family, whether or not it's there's a good balance between your interests, right? Like we say opposites attract. That's true, but opposites also get divorced a lot. So compatibility is important, right? And do you guys have shared interests? So I think it's important to do the deep dive. Don't feel bad about saying that this isn't working for me, and take the time to really be honest with yourself, because ideally it's a lifelong commitment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being honest with your values, right? And being very vocal about your values that are non-negotiable, because there are non-negotiables and there's negotiables, and like children, like that, you can't have half a quarter child. You can't do that, or how you're gonna engage with family. I don't know, but there are certain things that are non-negotiables, and you need to have those conversations on the front end so that people are not surprised or feel like you trapped them, and because it never ends well.
All right, that is awesome. There was one comment that said that one of you all was crazier than the other. I'm going to put David's up because I kind of yeah, absolutely.
Cynthia is less crazy than David. Let's take a poll. Let's take it.
Without a doubt. 150%. All right. So last question that I have for you all, then we'll take a break and then we'll come back and take questions. And so if you do have questions, please make sure you type them in the comment box. We're going to take about 10 minutes at the end of this to sort of answer the questions that you have. We will get to the questions that you have already put into the comment box. But just last question, looking at where your marriage started to where you are now, what are some of the differences that you see? And then encourage someone with how to get there.
Yeah, look, I think a part of it is comfort. It's part of it is just, kind of knowing your spouse better, knowing what to anticipate, knowing that, whatever frustration you may have today is not the end of the relationship, and that there are ways to work through it. And I think that it's sometimes it can be disheartening when you first begin a marriage and you go through, for some people it's the first year, for some people it's the first 5, right? But you can go through some significant challenges and it can feel hopeless. And you're like, wait, is this what it's all about? And in part, yes, it is. In this regard, right? It is about the struggle, as long as there are two individuals who are willing to make the choice to do the work, to grow, because marriage in part is being able to have somebody who can be that mirror, that person who, is going to provide some challenge to you, the person that you do love that at times will disappoint you. And then how do you show up and respond to that? And so I think sometimes it can be disheartening in the early days of a marriage. But I just want to encourage folks to stay the course, and allow, because I think where we are today is that it's an understanding that we can make it through things. We can make it through challenges. It may take some work, but I don't know that I think that we're not scared of that work anymore. And I think when we first started, it was like, man, this is work. Like, wow. Like, I don't know that we can do this.
The one thing that's really helpful is to frame it as you are sharpening each other's characters for heaven, and that hurts sometimes, right? Which is why, I think kind of going back to compatibility and how important that is, you know, if it's a completely blunt knife and the other person is super sharp, you're gonna get cut, you know. And so, you know, you really want to start, especially if you're at the beginning, you really want to start the way you want to finish. That's something that David always says, you know, and I think that it has proven itself to be true.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Listen, I want to thank you all for that. Listen, I want to encourage you all. You all need to do more of this stuff together. Like, everybody sees and hears you, Dave, and okay, you're great, but Cynthia is greater. People need to hear more from you.
Listen,
Cynthia.
I agree.
This is awesome. You know, I feel blessed that I got you to come on this and actually talk about this. Yeah. But what we're going to do is, if you have questions, please make sure you put them into the question section. We're going to take a quick commercial, 30 seconds, and then we're going to come back and we're going to take whatever questions you have for David and Cynthia. So we'll be right back.
Okay.
The Relationship Ministries Department of the Allegheny East Conference is a family of ministries that seeks to engage, enrich, and empower families, men, singles, couples, and parents to have healthy and whole relationships. To access the many resources we have available to you, your church, or your family, visit us on the web at www.visitaec.org/relationshipmin.
All right, guys. So we got a few minutes, about 10 minutes for questions, and so we're going to jump right into them. Hopefully, someone asks the question that will make you all uncomfortable. This one comes from one of our viewers, Grace Taylor. Should married people live in separate homes?
You know, I mean, definitely. I mean, the plain answer is no. But, you know, we now live in times where there are job situations that require for people to be separated. But the thing that I would encourage is to not be separated for long periods of time if it indeed is because of work. Now, if it's because you're having issues and you don't like how he keeps the house is dirty and you're like, I'm done, you know, that's a completely different conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of should is maybe part of the challenge. I think it's like, you know, based off of whose standard, right? It's like, you know, relationships and people are so unique and so different that I think that it requires, I think this idea of should and should not gets us in trouble sometimes because it denies the reality of where we are right now. So if there's a couple who's living separate in a house, right? Like, well, should you? Well,
probably not.
Yeah, but it's about, okay, this is where we are. What do we do about this? And how can we create a healthy relationship given the realities that we face?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, here's another one we're going to put up. Would you speak about opposites attract? Is this true?
Well, I said this earlier. I think it is true, but I don't know. But that doesn't. Yes, I believe it is true. If I answer this question, yes, I believe opposites attract, but I do not believe necessarily that opposites make good for good relationships and good marriages. I think that oftentimes what draws you to someone else is often a deficiency that we have in ourselves that we're trying to complement or compensate for. And so it's interesting and it produces some chemistry and some adventure, but
and you completely
right. and then you're like, whoa, okay, well, we complete, but I don't like that part of that completion, right? And so yeah, I think it's true, but I don't always think that is healthy. The people that I see that experience quite a bit of marital happiness are those that have shared interests. Yeah. So I think that we need to pull away from this idea of opposites attract, even though I believe it to be true. Let that not drive why we make a determination to marry someone. Oh, he's so different. Yeah, well, you're probably not going to like that by year 2.
Yeah, it's always fun and exciting at first.
Yeah.
All right. That's good stuff. All right. So here's another one. Is it ideal? How important is it for partners to take time apart? And is it ideal?
It's really important. I mean, when we have conversations about introvert, extrovert, it's kind of like, and David is very much a pure extrovert. And I'm noticing I'm more and more of an introvert, being intentional about creating space where you fill your cup back up, so whether it's, hey, go golfing with David,
Yes, tell him again. Tell him again. Did you hear that, Dave? You heard
and me going for a walk and listening to birds, just being intentional about being true to what you need to fill your cup back up is really important, because we're different human beings. And then it's okay to like miss someone. That's a thing too. Like, it creates that spice, as we were talking about before. It's kind of like, man, I missed him. I think that's important.
Gotcha. Yeah. We only got about 5 more minutes, so let's run through some of these. What is the average length of marriage counseling? Example, 6 months, 2 years?
It's hard to answer that. It depends on the issues. It really does. I'm not going to give an absolute answer, because it's very relative.
It's also, don't put time on it, put growth on it. So how long does it take you to grow? Yeah.
Right.
And then even after you have grown, still stay in it. Don't think because the issue is resolved that's the time. You use counseling to build a marriage, not necessarily to put out flames.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Do you have any advice for expectations in dating in 2020? Oof.
Man. Especially during COVID season, right?
Listen.
Man.
We did it too long ago.
It is rough out there in them streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So.
All right, Frank, come on.
Yeah. Look, I mean, right. I think. Look, this is challenging. Here's some of the things that I have said, though. Here's some. One of the things I've said is it's important to. In fact, my good friend Michael Kelly says this all the time: date more, marry less, right? And so it's like to the best of our ability. And man, I'm hesitating to say this because I've had so many conversations, particularly with single Black women. I'm just going to say, about what I'm about to say. They have challenged me on this, but yeah, it's like, don't get too locked in on one particular individual right out the gate. It's important to explore a multiplicity of options, and that's not about being a player or being loose if you're a woman, and like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being able to have an opportunity to explore different kinds of personalities, different kinds of individuals who have different interests. And allowing that almost to be an opportunity to research what you really vibe with, and what you're really connected to. Mm-hmm. Now during COVID season, right? I almost feel like this one is tough. It's a tough reality.
Yeah, one thing that I do always say, even before COVID, is diversifying how you meet people, because the truth is. College, and there's certain milestones in our lives where we are exposed to a very diverse group of people. And so then you're able to really do those things and date and, figure out what you like and that kind of thing. But now you have to be open to and not be opposed to online dating, so you can meet someone who is already in their career, especially when you're, you're out of college, or do things that are different, like, go to a fundraiser, do things that you will meet the kind of people that you would want to be with, and not just church, y'all. Come on. Like let's.
Did the first lady say it? Did she say it? Did the first lady say that? Pastor's wife said it.
They're not all going to be at
Did
church.
She say it?
They're just not, and that it's just a fact.
Yeah.
So,
but so yes, I agree. I agree with my wife. Even if I didn't, I'd say it. No, but I do. I agree with what she just said. I want to mention online dating though, because I've talked with several women on this particular issue, several of our singles. And so look, it's the wild, wild west sometimes in online dating, right? Like, there's, it's not right. It's a difficult field to navigate, right? Yeah. But because of its difficulty, I don't, that doesn't mean that it should be, invalidated as a one option where you can connect with folks, right? And you may have to do a lot of swiping, right? You may have to do a lot of swiping, right? And there may have to be a lot of people you pass on. A lot of those folks who show up in your inbox saying they're interested may not be the one, right? And there are little, like, you may have to get your strategy down on what you determine, how you determine this is somebody you want to pursue. So I know that online dating is not a panacea. It's not like a solve for the problem, but I do still think that it is an option that it's important to leverage. So,
And Cynthia, this last question, listen, that was awesome. We probably need y'all to come back on to talk. I want to have a follow-up conversation about the dowry situation. I want to also have a follow-up conversation about this that we're having. So I need you all to definitely come back on. We'll do this in a different form. But Cynthia, this question was for you. Cynthia, do church members request counseling from you? If so, how do you manage this? And don't say send them to me. That's what
I do. I really do. I know this wonderful therapist. Like, he's great.
Yes.
I mean, a Black male therapist is a unicorn. But anyway, so yes, and I'm very careful not to give advice and to open up wounds that I am not able to close up. And so I have learned how to not be dismissive, because I'm also a first lady, so it's really a dance, really. And so I listen for a short while, because sometimes people can sort of dump, and I kind of like close it. I find ways to help them contain it, and I'm like, hey, like, we need to find you someone to talk to, because it sounds like there's more that you need to explore. And I'll share with them, like, hey, like, therapy was great for me, and so, let's talk about finding you someone to talk to. So yeah, I'm very much, I probably ought to open up a referral, a leg of my business, but I've referred many people to therapy.
Yeah. She's also really good at creating boundaries.
Yes.
So when she's at church, she is the pastor's wife, and she's and she's a mom. Exactly. She's a mom. She's a member, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so she's not there to provide counseling services. And so that's the thing. But I will say that also applies in general. And I just know this because she's talked to me about how she keeps things separate. And that is that, if somebody engages her that she may even be, providing therapy to, they already know in advance that this is, when we're out of the therapy session, this is not time to get additional therapy. Yeah. Like, we're not, you may see me,
no,
but I am not going to engage in a dialogue with you about what we dealt with in therapy. I'm not going to do it. And
this is my spiel. Like, I will act like I don't know what you're talking about. Or if you don't engage me and you're my client, because that happens, I'm not going to approach you. I'll be cordial. If you approach me, just say hello. I'm very directive in the way that I want them to engage with me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Listen, I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for this. I think that our viewing audience definitely got a good amount of information, a good amount of insight. And I think that a good amount of people online, Cynthia, they are overjoyed to get to know you more. I want to thank you for your openness, for your transparency. And I want to thank you both for allowing us to come on into your homes. I'm going to give you all a parting word. But before we do that, I just want to let you all know that next week, listen, we have Brenda and Emil Peeler that will be with us. He's the senior pastor of the Capitol Hill Church. Listen, we're going to have an awesome discussion again next week. And then this evening, we are having the part 2 of our family and finances discussion at 6:00 p.m. And so if we invite you to join us for that family and finance discussion. And then we're having, once again on Saturday, the follow-up discussion to, we had the Be the Man discussion last month. We're having the I Am the Man discussion this Saturday at 6:00 p.m. And so we want to invite you to definitely be with us. David and Franklin, just give us 30 seconds. What would you want to leave the people with from this discussion?
You could start.
Well, no, here's what I think. I think that it's important for you, for no matter where you are in the dating or relationship journey, to understand that you have tools at your disposal, not just therapy, but even just this personal internal conversation that you can have with yourself. And then hopefully that grows from yourself to your spouse or your significant other, that that trial and error can be a powerful tool that you can use to grow, to understand if this is the right person for you to continue in a relationship with, or if you're already in a marriage relationship, to determine how you navigate that marriage to ensure that it stays healthy and whole. So I just want people to leave being empowered that you, even if you ain't talking to a therapist yet, you still can try some things, test some things so that you can determine how to improve your relationship and how to improve your life.
Yeah. For those who are dating and open to new relationships, I want to encourage you to try something different. Put the pride aside. And I know with Corona, it gets even more complicated. But as things open up, learn a new skill. If it's golfing, where there's a possibility that you might meet people that are living the way that are compatible with you. But just, going outside of your comfort zone is something that's really, really important.
All right. Thank you all. And I want to thank our online audience. Thank you for joining us.